Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is April 23rd, 2025, and we have got another fantastic author for you. But then when don't we? Today, we're going to be talking to a fantastic mystery author who has an intriguing story to tell you, and she is so fascinating, and even her website has some incredible things that you will want to go and check out, and we get into all of that in today's episode with her. So, let's not waste any time. You can tell I'm in a weird mood today. Be sure to stick around until the very end because we have got all kinds of cool things to share with you and you will not want to miss out. But for now, let's get right to the interview. Let's bring out our wonderful guest who I had so much fun talking to. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, D.M.S. Fick. We always like to start with just having our guest tell everyone who they are and what they do.
Well, hello, I'm D.M.S. Fick. The D stands for Denise, and I write mysteries and women's fiction. And the book I'm here to talk about today is Louis Sinclair and the Gentlemen Cowboys, a murder mystery that takes place at a country music festival.
And I am a big fan of murder mysteries, so this is right up my alley.
Oh, excellent.
Now, my first book series that I put out, I did it under a pen name. But one of the things that people have always suggested if you don't want to choose a male name, because like for my books, I was doing historical fiction and they said that they tend to be better received if people think a man wrote them because it was Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to use your initials instead of your name?
Well, that was one of the reasons I did it because I didn't want people to know if I was male or female in case that would influence whether they bought the book or not. And the book has a male protagonist, so I thought, I would keep people mystified on that aspect. And another one was a little bit of anonymity and a little bit of mystique in that I have two middle names. Not a lot of people have three initials before their last name, and I thought that was something that I could use. Plus, DMS sounds sort of like HMS, like a boat, which kind of tickles me, and I think it's kind of funny. So,
well, that is something else that we have in common because I actually have 5 legal names with 3 middle names.
Oh, you got me beat.
And my name does not fit on anything.
No, oh my, yeah.
I always like talking about the marketing that people do because it's one of the most difficult things for most authors to deal with is their marketing and things like building a website. I've been looking at your website and there are so many fun things on your website.
Oh, thank you. Because, I can't be objective about it. And after a while, I was like, it doesn't really look a lot like other author websites that I've seen. But I wanted each page to have an icon so you kind of knew where you were at on each one. And I tried to make it fun and have fun facts. But I wasn't sure if it was effective, if it was what readers would be looking for. So I'm so happy to hear you say that.
I think it's very effective because one thing, it's very clean. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to navigate, which is seriously important.
Oh, great.
And I like the fact that instead of a standard bio, you have fun facts and your facts are fun.
Oh. And they're real.
Well, it's like I have some questions here too.
Okay.
Because the very first one on there, you talk about you traveled in a coach from Valencia, Spain to I can never say this.
Calais.
Thank you. I always, for some reason, I get tripped up on that one. Yeah, France. We're just going to skip over that.
France.
With a retired British showgirl who was telling you stories about her life. And then she asked you to carry 2 bottles of hooch through customs for her. My question is, what kind of hooch?
It was hard liquor. I don't know. It must have been vodka. Maybe some wine. She was such a character to meet. I decided to go to Valencia. I'd wanted to go to Florence. And so I was living in London at the time. I was a student on a year-long study program. And everybody was always going places. I had done most of my traveling in Great Britain, but all of the other students in the house, they would go all over the place. But I was a little skittish about going someplace else because I only barely knew some Spanish and not very well at all. I'd forgotten most of it since high school, like 2 short years later. And so Florence was booked. So the magic bus, I decided to go to Valencia. And on the coach ride back, there was this British showgirl, and she was, I suppose, in her 70s. One of those people that just like strikes up the conversation, and she started as soon as I sat down next to her, and the stories didn't stop all the way to the channel. And then when we got there, she pulled out these these bottles of liquor and said that she could only take so many through customs, and wondered if I would take some in my luggage. And I was too much of a scaredy cat and too straight-laced, afraid of getting arrested.
Well, I would think being in a foreign country and not knowing how it's going to be perceived.
So I did not take the liquor through for her. So I think that must have ended up on the coach and was a nice gift for the driver later on.
That's amazing. Now, the other story that I found really interesting was you were talking about you really felt that you were becoming a writer while you were walking the beans.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if anybody still walks beans anymore, but when I was growing up, that's what farmers did, and they were soybeans. So my sister, my dad, and my uncle and I would walk up and down the rows of beans, the soybeans, and cut out cockleburs and corn stalks and lamb's quarters. I was the youngest, so when I started, I was not allowed to have a knife or a corn hook. I had to pull everything out by hand. And I graduated to a weed hook later on when I was a teenager. It's very meditative. You just all day, starting very early in the morning when the soybeans are still damp with dew and your clothes are getting soaked with the dew, and there's nothing to do but think. And a lot of writers will go for walks to get ideas. I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of bored walking up and down these rows of beans all day long. And so I started thinking up plots for screenplays, for plays. And my sister must have been doing it too, because when we would get home at night, then we would start to work on screenplays together. So yeah, my first actual writing of, say, dialogue that didn't have a cartoon picture with it was in the soybeans, in my meditative state, walking up and down the rows of beans.
Now, anything that you were thinking of back at that point, have you followed through and published any of that?
No. And some of it, my sister passed away, and she had the boxes of her writing, and I don't know whatever happened to that.
Oh,
I was too shy to ask my brother-in-law. Say, did you ever come across any writing that Corinne and I did together? So no, one of them was a mystery though, and it was a comedic mystery. Sort of almost a Knives Out sort of thing about a bunch of cousins meeting to hear the reading of a will. And then there were none,
Mm-hmm.
Some of the cousins get picked off along the way as we get closer to the ending.
See, I love stories like that. Now, one of the other stories in there that I was really interested about, you were an extra in the movie Fargo.
Oh, yes. It was so fun. They had a big casting call and just lines of people, and we would drop off photos and fill out a form, and then they would contact us when to show up. Now, the funny thing was they said bring 2 sets of clothes, and that I would be in the Carlton celebrity room scene of Fargo. And so I thought, oh, okay. So I was wearing one evening dress, sort of a strapless green velvet dress, but I brought a second outfit. But when I got there and the person saw what clothes I brought, they went, oh, didn't you bring any casual clothes? And nobody mentioned anything about casual clothes. So like my face fell. I was like, oh man, I always think, oh, I was supposed to bring a sweatshirt. And I asked him, there's a Target just a block away from here. Can I go run, get a sweatshirt and jeans? And they wouldn't let me leave the premises because they never knew when the extras were going to be called upon to be in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the Carlton Celebrity Room. And I was, as I say, in a booth in the back in the table in the dark. And I don't show up at all, but I know exactly, what shot I'm in. But another reason why I'm not an actress is that I would see the assistant directors and they were talking to the actors who were portraying wait staff and telling them all of these instructions on how, okay, move over here, walk over there, walk over there. And I thought, there's no way I would remember all of those instructions. So I guess it's just good that I'm, sitting in a booth in the dark because I couldn't handle anything more complex than that.
Now, if anybody else is interested, there's a lot more on your fun facts page that they need to go and check out because there are so many interesting things that you have done, because you did not start out as a writer. You started out doing graphic design.
Yes, as well. I drew stories ever since I was a kid. I drew all the time. And I thought when I became a teenager, then I thought, like, I want to be a film director because that would feed my storytelling urges. And it's also a visual medium. But I didn't know how to go about that. So I majored in mass communications with an emphasis in television when I went to college. At the time, the Mary Tyler Moore Show was out and Woodward and Bernstein were very popular. So there was a lot of journalism people coming out of colleges at the time. And my strong point was my artistic background. So that was how I got an internship at a TV station, was in their graphic design department. And then I worked as a graphic designer for TV stations for like the next 4 decades. The last one of which was at a PBS station. And I stayed there for 2 decades. And it was never boring, and it was a lot of fun, and the people were great.
It seems like you have a lot of experience creating maps.
I do. No one ever wanted to make the maps, and they would sort of like apologize to me about, like, here's some more maps. And the nasty little secret was I actually enjoy making maps. It's fun. As long as I don't have to match 2 very different maps up to make one map, which I would have to do for historical maps. Sometimes our sources were vastly different, and I'd have to sync them up. It's not always easy. But yes, I do make a lot of maps. I've made weather maps and maps for the American Revolution, maps for the Dakota War in Minnesota and South Dakota, and James J. Hill railroad maps. I've made a lot of maps in my time.
Okay, well, me being the nerd that I am, I think that is so super cool because I love making maps.
Aren't they fun?
I love it. It's like whenever I write my stories, I always create a map for myself because I'm a very visual person too.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to visualize. In my historical fiction series that I wrote, people start on the East Coast and they come into the Midwest, and I mapped out like the whole trek that they took on the trains. I was actually looking up maps for the train rails that were there at that time period, and looking at the different territories and creating this map for my storyline off of the historical maps. And that kind of stuff is fun for me. So whenever I saw that you were doing this for all of these different agencies, doing the weather maps and the historical maps, I'm like, I get that.
It's rewarding. And that's all, it's so helpful to know where are you in the story, and what are the characters doing? What are they seeing? Where's this related to that? I always had to know where's the saloon in relation to the stage and the Walk of Fame, and visualizing that was important for me to know what was happening and what the characters would be experiencing when they were in that spot.
So now, how did you actually get into animation?
That was a being in the right place at the right time, because I was doing graphic design and the PBS station had an opening for an office assistant. And so I got that as a part-time job. And their animator, their broadcast designer, was preparing to leave. And so I just sort of like, well, I want to do that. And so I just sort of was there and was willing. And they were too. So they trained me. And that's how it happened.
And your work has actually garnered you a few awards, too.
Yes, in the television graphic design business, it used to be called Broadcast Designers Association, and now it's Promax. And so they have awards, and I got a silver award for my funny show about the weather opening. And I'm not sure if it's work that anybody's ever seen, because I think it only aired once, but it's my favorite thing that I did while I worked there. Because it's the most me, it's got a sense of humor, and it's all cartoon, and it goes through the 4 seasons of Minnesota weather with this little sort of Pink Panther-esque man and his cat. And it's a wink and a laugh about Minnesota weather, and it makes me very happy.
I'm sure this is probably on YouTube somewhere. Seems like everything is.
Yes, it is. And I think I might have a link to it on my website, dmsfic.com. If not, I better make sure to add that. By the time this interview airs, there will be a link to show that animation because it's fun. It's in the style of mid-60s cartoons.
But you are also involved in 2 TV shows that won Emmys.
SciGirls, which was the most recent one. That is a show for tween girls to learn about the sciences, and to encourage that. And I tell you, that was an eye-opening show to work on. The producers were very good about finding these ways that all these different areas that science is used in. And things that you wouldn't, like ever think about, like costume design, dress design, weather forecasting, clouds, animal migrations, palm trees in California, batteries, wind turbines. It was a fascinating show. And I thought, like, man, if I'd known that science had these fun applications that I would eventually use, I would have studied perhaps a little harder when it came to math and science than I did.
A lot of people don't even think about it, but baking is a great way to teach chemical reactions.
Like Alton Brown opened my eyes to that. It's like, oh, that's how that works. That's why that happens.
It's amazing the difference that you can get making just, cookies, whether you use baking powder, baking soda, what you put in there, if you have enough salt, how it can affect the flavor. And if you put salt in on top of your yeast, you're not going to get bread that rises because of the chemical reaction to it.
Oh, these are things that I didn't know. I think I might have had better results with my baked goods had I known a little bit more about the science of baking.
Now, how did you go from being a successful graphic designer to getting into writing books?
Well, I had worked in these TV stations, and especially at the public TV station, and they made a lot of shows for the local audience, and some of the shows that were nationally broadcast, like SciGirls and Newton's Apple and Liberty, the American Revolution. So I was always working on these wonderful projects, but they were always somebody else's projects, and what I was basically doing was gift wrapping their work. And, I have this sense of humor, and I like to tell stories, so I really wanted to tell my own stories. So that's how I started writing novels. What I wrote when I started was not publishable. But I say, don't throw those things away. A lot of people think like, oh, my first novel was like really awful, and like I've thrown it in the trash, or I've put it in a desk, never to be pulled out again. And I have pulled that out. And once I was a much better writer, decades later, I have done 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th drafts of it, and it's a good book now. So don't give up on those. But back when I started writing novels so that I could tell my own stories, it became feasible for me to leave working full time when my husband and I sold our house and moved to the family farm. We never lived on the farm. My uncle lived on the farm, but we eventually bought it from him, and the farmhouse stood empty for a decade. And so we sold our house in St. Paul and moved to the farmhouse, and that allowed me to freelance some. So I still would freelance for my former employer, but I had a lot more time to focus on writing and becoming a better, faster writer and getting those works shaped up and focusing on finding a publisher. I finally had the time to do that.
One of the things that I wanted to mention about your website is I love the fact that you have Meet the Cowboys, your Cowboy Extra page. And you give like a little synopsis of all the different cowboys, but then you also have things like a playlist, which I am shocked how many authors are creating playlists for their stories. I love that.
I was very happy that that was something that I could add to it, and to add the links to the YouTube videos and Vimeo videos, because one thing, it's very expensive to quote of a song. And some of the songs that I found, maybe not everybody knows. Some people will know the classic, like A Good Year for the Roses, but not everybody. A lot of people won't. And so I was very happy to be able to find different performances of it and add that to the website. And there's one sort of creepy, sad folk tune that I was surprised that Megan Mullally did a cover of. I got to link to that, and that's an important song that's mentioned maybe halfway through the book. And of course, the original title of the book was The Ghostwriter's Mystery. And so Ghostwriters in the Sky, definitely, I needed to have a link to that because that is one of the songs that Louis played. When the evil is summoned from the earth and wreaks havoc upon the land, metaphorically.
I love when people do playlists because I think that just adds an extra dimension to the emotional impact that a story will have on you.
Well, yeah, music is so effective. And I would have these songs in my head when I was writing. So I really wanted to be able to share them with the readers.
Well, and plus it seems so appropriate for yours since you are talking about a band that is going to a music festival. It just makes sense to have music along with all of this because there's music going on in the story.
Yeah, and it's sort of a reminder. That's where we are. We're at a festival, and all of the songs on the playlist were songs that I was thinking about when I wrote it and are mentioned in the book and play a pretty significant role in what's going on.
And I think people would not be surprised to find that you have a map
Yes.
of the Fall Fest.
Yeah, I had fun. Had to get my maps in there.
Well, but that's such a great thing because whenever you're giving these descriptions in the story, maybe there's somebody out there who just is not that great at visualizing. And this can make it so much easier to understand the situation whenever you're talking about the mystery. Where were they? Where were they going? What was around them? It's so much easier to imagine the storyline when you have something to go off of.
And I had that map just generally in my head as I was writing. And it was a relief to put it down visually. So I could say, yes, it all makes sense. That's where the campgrounds are. That's where the stage is. That's where you would get into the place. Here's where the medics are. Here's where. So it was a relief to know that it all matched up according to how I wrote it.
Now, you also have a thing for book clubs, that you have a little book club kit. And I love that it has like discussion questions. It has information about you, information about the story. I mean, your media packages are fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I did try.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of, especially indie published authors, they have their book, they've got it ready to go, they've got their copies, and then they don't know what to do to really network and get it promoted well by other people.
That is a challenge. I was fortunate that my publisher did get me reviewed in Publishers Weekly and Library Journal and Forward Reviews. So I had
nice.
I had some review blurbs that I could post on my website and in my email to bookstores and media outlets. So that was nice. But a lot of publicity was emailing first the newspapers all around the state that I live in, and especially focusing on towns that had festivals. And it turns out that there are a lot of music festivals in Minnesota and throughout the United States. So I would email the newspapers and radio stations in these towns and libraries. It's a time-consuming process, but that's what I could do. In the future, I would maybe like to get a grant so that I could hire a publicist. But publicists, there's a reason people use them, because they're effective and they get you reviewed. They get you interviewed with Sunday major city newspapers and TV stations that won't interview you otherwise. They won't look at the letter that they're sent. But it's a big expense and you don't have a guarantee that it's going to work. So for the future, I'm going to plan ahead and apply for a grant, see if I can get some funds for a publicist.
Well, and I do think that your publisher did a great job on some of these early reviews for you, because just the little blurbs that you have on your website, those are good.
Oh,
I mean, okay, I love this one. It's like, patrons looking for thrilling mysteries that include love, jealousy, and betrayal set against a musical festival backdrop will enjoy. Suggested to fans of Dolly Parton and James Patterson's Run, Rose, Run, and Peggy O'Neill's pendants your killing heart.
Pinch me, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, that's amazing.
That one made me pretty happy.
See, and that was by the Library Journal. I mean, that is a great one to have. And even the one with Publishers Weekly is maybe not as strong, but still so good. It's like this country music mystery hits all the right notes. Readers will hope to hear more from the cowboy crooner and his band. I mean, that is a great endorsement.
Yes, being insecure. Like the first time I read it, it was like, well, I think it's a kind of good review. And my friends would say, are you kidding? That
That's a
and then
great
they would read
review.
the part that you just read. And it's like, oh, okay, right. Okay, yes, it's good.
Well, I think that's part of being a writer, though. As soon as you put your babies out there into the world, you're just waiting for the negative. That seems to be the go-to emotion for most writers is they're waiting for the negative reviews. So when they get a really good one, it's like, wait a minute, you like it?
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. And I think it's just that imposter syndrome that everybody has.
Yeah. Somebody once said, and it's so true, that it's like, I both think that I'm the best writer on the planet and nobody's ever read anything like my work. And I don't know what I'm doing. And you're going to find out I'm faking it.
Yeah. That seems very appropriate. That's good.
Yeah, all at the same time. When it's always just your own story and you're the only person that's read it. I was in a book club and we read a draft of Louis Sinclair. And, at first it was like, oh no, it's very scary to have, people I know reading it. And then it was very exciting and I got kind of addicted to it. It's like, I got to have more people read it. I got to have more, I need more feedback. It was just very exciting for it to all of a sudden, it's out there in the world now. It's other people have read it. They've thought about it. My writing, yay. And then when I was getting published and I had an editor, that was an amazing process because it was like both with the reading group and with the editors, like when I write something, I know that they're standing here on the hill and that they're looking down over here and it's right over there. But does the reader know that? Have I given enough information that the reader knows what's going on? And because I wrote the book, I can't be sure. And so to have a person read the book and make suggestions, it used to be like Louis Sinclair disappeared 2/3 the way through the book because I fell in love with all my other characters. And so they were off having all of these different adventures. And the editor said, Louis sort of disappears. Can we bring him back somehow? And reworking that, like maybe something that was done by another character, can we make it Louis Sinclair does it? Mm-hmm. Or knowing that we're losing momentum here, or you've mentioned this clue too many times. It was so rewarding to have another person be able to make suggestions and to see, is it working or not? And one who wasn't my friend, so they weren't afraid to tell me.
Yeah, that's always helpful.
Mm-hmm. And also, I have an artistic temperament. So it would be that, like, when I first got the suggested changes, I would just like, what? This is outrageous. No, I won't fix that. No, I won't change that. I wrote it this way because I wanted it that way. And then if I let a couple days go by, I went, oh, yeah, that's right. I should do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It always takes a couple of days, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, okay.
Okay. When sometimes it would be something like, I thought I was getting away with something, like maybe they won't notice. And you're like, nope, they noticed. Okay.
Well, I can tell you that as a Midwest farm girl, it was so easy to fall into your story. Everything seemed like comfortable and familiar and just really easy to understand.
Oh, good. Good. I'm relieved.
So now I think it's a really good time for you to go ahead and tell us about Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys.
Oh, right. We've been talking about it like everybody knows. Well, it's about this musician, Louis Sinclair. He's from Texas, and his band is called the Gentleman Cowboys. They're about to play at a country and western music festival, one of the premier festivals in the United States. And just before they're about to go on stage, their lowlife manager proposes to Louis' girlfriend on stage in front of 40,000 music fans. And the next day, he turns up with his handprints and his face in cement in the festival's Walk of Fame. And so then Louis and the band and the festival staff all have to work together to find the killer before Louis ends up on the top 10 most wanted list instead of the music charts. it's built around several sets of family. I think that there's a theme throughout the book of family, the families that you're born into and the families that you make. So like Louie and the band are a family, the festival staff are a family. One of the bass players has a family at a resort near the festival. And there are two senior citizen ladies who are audience members, and they are set up camp in the RV camp, and they're a sort of family. So there's all these different families, and it's so important how a good family can make a person's life so much better, and how a bad family can just make it so much harder. And I think that's a theme that I didn't know was in there until I finished writing the book and saw it myself. But that's an important theme throughout. And part of that is also the camaraderie is what makes it fun to hang out and read the mystery, because I think they're all delightful people that you want to spend more time with.
And one thing that I love on your website, you make it very easy for people to find your book because you have a button that they can check for shops and libraries. So even if you don't have the money to go buy the book right now and you still want to read it at this moment, you can go check it out at your local library. And there's a listing for many, many places on here in so many states and even in Scotland and Alberta. So if people are looking for your book, they should definitely go and check there. And I want to specifically mention the Raven Bookstore in Lawrence, Kansas, because I'm a Kansas girl and I have a friend, Mel. Go to the Raven Bookstore and buy this because you'll love it. I know you will. Say my friend Mel lives in Lawrence, so I have to tell her.
Oh, good deal. That was when Lawrence, Kansas. I've always felt an affinity for Lawrence, Kansas, because when I was on that student program in London, the group of students that lived in the same house the next year was from Lawrence, Kansas.
Nice.
A university in Lawrence, Kansas. And my dad's name is Lawrence. So I am very fond of Lawrence, Kansas. Just for those reasons.
It's just a fun little college town. It is so nice. It has great bookstores.
Well, I hope they all will carry Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys.
Absolutely. They should.
When I think that also that library journal review really helped get me into libraries.
Oh, yeah.
And my publisher held two different live chats. On Library Journal has Day of Dialogues, and that might have helped.
And there is an English language library here in Dusseldorf, Germany. We may have to see about getting your book in there.
Please, yes. I'm going to write that down and be sending off an email later today.
They also do like author chats. Maybe they could do one via Skype with you.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
I would love that. Yes.
So we'll have to talk. Okay.
Yes, please.
Now would be the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I just keep finding good questions to ask, so I keep doing it.
This is my favorite part of the interviews when I listen to them.
They always end up just being so much fun.
Yes.
Okay, so question 1. Do you have a nickname?
My husband calls me Dee. My family always called me Niecy because my first name is Denise.
Mm-hmm.
So they always called me Niecy. And that's it. No, I don't have a nickname outside of husband and family. I've always wanted one, though. I've always wanted a nickname. So if you want to give me a nickname, I will embrace it.
We may have to think about this because I'm kind of the same way. I've never really had a nickname, except when I was about 6 years old. My dad was a truck driver and he always spoke on the CB. And when he was home on the weekends, he would let me talk to some of his truck driver friends on his CB radio. So he had to give me a handle to use to talk to his friends. And the handle he gave me was Stinkweed.
Oh, Dad.
That's the closest that I have ever come to having a nickname.
Well, I just reserved that for Dad.
Yeah. See, and luckily that was only a CB thing when I was 6 years old and did not stick with me for my entire life. Thank goodness.
It's funny that, because I use D.M.S. Fick as my pen name, people don't know, like, should I call you D.M.S.? Should I call you D? And I'm never quite sure what to tell people. It's like, I feel kind of like Pee Wee Herman. Well, you can call me D, I guess, because I don't know how to shorten that up.
That is one thing that I've come across whenever I have so many interviews with people that just use initials. It's like, okay, do you not want people to know your first name? Do you want me to call you by your first name? Do you want to just go by, Fick, it is usually a question that we end up talking about before we start recording.
All over on my social media, I'm just D.M.S. Fick, and there's no hint as to what my actual first name is. But you may call me Denise, or you could call me Niecy.
I've told people Dianne is not my first name. It's my first middle name.
Ah.
I just don't use my first name for anything. And that's how I keep my anonymity.
Yes.
So now, question 2. What is one movie or TV show that you could watch every day and never get tired of it?
The movie that I can watch every day is Local Hero. It's a movie that takes place in Scotland, directed by Bill Forsyth. It was made in the 80s, I think, and it stars Peter Riegert and Peter Capaldi, who is one of the Doctor Who's. It's about a Texas oil executive who is sent to a seaside Scottish village with the intent to buy the village and the beach from the townspeople. It's quirky without being twee, and it's very funny, and the scenery is wonderful, and there's a soundtrack by Mark Knopfler that's just like, it's perfect. And I could watch that every day for the rest of my life. Yes, please.
Wow, I'm not even familiar with that. I'm going to have to check that out.
It's quite good. I like it a lot. Although I haven't watched it for a couple years, but I have it on disc, so I think I'll watch that tonight. I recommend it. I think it's lovely. Lovely and funny.
My husband and I have the same movie and TV show that we could watch just over and over again. And I think that's actually why we married each other. Because we have together watched Star Wars, any of the Star Wars movies, but mostly the first original trilogy, and The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, I love The Big Bang Theory.
We watch that together all the time. It's ridiculous how many times we have watched The Big Bang Theory.
I've seen every episode. That show is brilliant. I've seen every episode, and I think that it's just so great because it's got my favorite things. It's got camaraderie and lots of laughs, and they're able to do that for 22 minutes and over 100 episodes.
And for gigantic sci-fi nerds like my husband and I, it just feeds into all of our fascination. They've got Star Trek, Star Wars, they've got action figures. I mean, absolutely everything.
You're seen.
Yes, exactly.
They know you.
Now, question 3. Since you are a mystery writer, are you good at solving puzzles?
I am. I do, I'm good at crossword puzzles and acrostics and cryptograms.
Do you like figuring out other people's mystery stories?
I do. I especially like what cozy adjacent. I like mysteries where, like Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club, that sort of level of where you just want to hang out with the characters, and there's a level of humor. It may not necessarily be out loud laughs.
Yeah,
they're just amusing, and it's just fun to hang out in this location with these people for the course of the book. And there has to be a mystery too. There has to be a puzzle to solve. And it has to feel rewarding at the end. I don't want it to just sort of seem, you don't want it to be too easy, but you don't want it to come out of nowhere. So I do like the puzzle aspect of it. I don't figure it out every time. And sometimes I don't even try. Sometimes I just read it through for the ride.
I think that's one of the reasons why I like mystery so much, because I love solving puzzles. So question 4. Do you have any phobias?
Oh, well, I'm afraid of heights. I'm not good hiking trails up mountains. I used to be fine with it. That year when I was in Britain, I would go capering about the Cornish coast on these cliffs and, peer over the side at the crashing waves on the rocks and not have a problem. But when my husband and I went on our honeymoon, and I was middle-aged by that time, I think, and on one of the stops along the way, we drove to Taos, but we stopped at different places along the way, and one of them was the Grand Tetons, and we were walking up this way too narrow path up the side of a mountain. And there were all of these other people who had no fear of heights, just zipping by me. And then I got to the point where I just froze and I was sort of like plastered
Yeah.
against the rock face. And like these kids are like running around beside me. And there was so much foot traffic that I couldn't find a time to like turn around
Hmm.
and go back down. And it took way too long for me to find a spot where I could get to safety and start breathing again. So fear of heights, that's a definite phobia. And I'm not good with total darkness. I like to have a night light or a bit of street light or the moon
Hmm.
shining in through a crack in the curtains.
See, and for me, it's claustrophobia. And
Mm-hmm.
I did not know I had claustrophobia until I had to have my first MRI.
Oh no. Oh, that's not where you want to find out, is it?
Yeah. It's like whenever they put you in that tube and then you freak out and try and crawl out, but you're actually attached to the bed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That it's like they're like, why didn't you tell us that you were claustrophobic? I'm like, because I didn't know I was
Yeah.
claustrophobic.
Oh.
Now I know
Oh.
though. So whenever I have those, they do things to compensate for that.
Okay. Well, thank goodness that they do.
Yeah. Now, the one question that I've been asking for question 5 for every author is basically a little bit of self-serving because I'm creating a to buy list for myself. And I'm also
Mhm.
creating a reader suggestion list to put in our magazine at the end of the year. So
Ah.
for question 5, it's who is your favorite author?
Hmm. Well, I will say my favorite author is Anne Tyler. I've probably, outside of Agatha Christie, who, because she's so prolific, she's written the most books, so I've read the most books by her. But my favorite author is Anne Tyler. I've read a lot of her books, not every one of them, so that's happy that I still have more to read. And my favorite book by her is a short book. It's very short, called Vinegar Girl, which is a retelling, supposedly. I've never read Taming the Shrew, but it's supposedly a retelling. And it's short, but the characters are funny. There are actually laugh out loud places in it. It's amusing from page 1 to the end. And it's about the daughter of a research scientist whose assistant is from Russia and his visa is running out. And so the father scientist tries to get his daughter, the main character, to marry his assistant so that his assistant can stay in the country and they can continue their research. It's ridiculous and it's funny and it's sweet. It's very rewarding. I don't think anyone would ever regret reading it. It's just a lot of fun. And I've read it at least 5 times and I'll probably read it again.
Oh, wow. That's a very good recommendation. It's like, I'll have to check that because I love Taming of the Shrew. I'm like such a Shakespeare nerd. So
Hey, he knew what he was doing, right?
this is how bad I was with Shakespeare. When I was in junior high, I got a leather bound edition of the complete works of Shakespeare, and I would carry it around with me at school and read it between classes.
Oh my.
If I had just tattooed nerd across my forehead, I could not have done a better job to tell people.
Well, I think like high school is a really great time to read Shakespeare. The plays that we read for high school that were
Mhm.
Shakespeare plays, I got it. I was able to read them. I understood everything. I enjoyed them, and I can still read them now and get them. So I'm all for read as much Shakespeare in your youth as you can.
Yeah. Whenever I started college, I took a literature class on the great works of Shakespeare. And I managed to ask a question to my professor that he looked at me, he's like, nobody has ever asked me that before. And I'm like, all right.
You're a Shakespeare scholar.
See, but the question was a lot of Shakespeare's work, he has very strong female characters that were unheard of at that time to give a
Mm-hmm.
woman that kind of a voice. And I said, do you think that he wrote women like that because that's truly what his opinions of women were? Or because in his head, he knew that since women couldn't be on stage and couldn't perform as actors, that men were going to be playing those parts. And he was writing those female characters as men.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Because was it like, had he thought more about it, maybe he wouldn't have written them so richly, but he actually wrote them as full-fledged characters.
Because men would be playing them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good question. I wish I knew the answer. What
Yeah,
did
I
your
know.
teacher say?
Basically, it was, we'll never know. And I'm like, Dang it. I want to know. This has been so much fun. Let's remind everybody who you are and where they can find your book.
I'm D.M.S. Fick. You can find my book at all sorts of places and at dmsfick.com. There's a lot of fun stuff there. I'm D.M.S. Fick on all of my social media, Instagram, Blue Sky, Substack. Although I think on Facebook, I'm D.M.S. Fick-author. But if you go to my website, you'll see a list of stores and libraries. But don't be afraid to ask your store or your library to order Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys, because it's easily available for them to order for you. Of course, from the library, you can read it for free. If you want to buy it, you can read online. You know, the big 3 websites, you can read an excerpt or hear an excerpt of the audiobook. But please go to your favorite bookstore to actually purchase the book.
And if you would like to read this together in your book club, there is also information on the website for questions that you can discuss about this book.
Yep, dmsfick.com. There's a kit.
Thank you so much for taking the time out today and doing this interview with me. This has been so much fun.
Oh, thank you. It's been a delight. I'm just so pleased that you invited me, and I'm delighted.
And one more time, give everybody your name and the title of your book.
D.M.S. Fick, and it's Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys. Now, if you just Google Louis Sinclair, you're going to come up with a lot of Sinclair Lewis stuff.
Yeah.
And so try to get as much of the title in as possible. Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys.
And as always, we will have live links in the description of today's podcast so people can easily just click and go and find you in all of your social media and places to buy your book. And I noticed that you do have a link to IndieBound, which we have been promoting lately, so that people can start buying books from more independent bookstores and give some support to them as well.
Mm-hmm. Very important.
So there you have it, folks. My incredible interview with the amazing D.M.S. Fick. Be sure to go and check out her new book, Louis Sinclair and the Gentleman Cowboys. Now, next week, we're actually going to be having a return guest. I haven't done this a whole lot, but I like to do it every once in a while whenever they have something new to promote. And next week, we are going to be talking again with Linnea Denoto, and we're going to be discussing her new book, Aqua Cosmic Eclosion. Try saying that one 10 times fast. This is book 2 of her duology of the Forever After series. And I have been looking forward to this because I really enjoyed the first part of the duology. So I'm really excited about getting into the second part with her and sharing it with all of you. Now, if you are an author and you have put in an application to be part of Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, the Book Talk podcast, just know that I am going through all of the applications right now, and I will be making a final decision and filling out the rest of season 4's episodes very soon. I'm going to be contacting everybody. We only have 7 spots left to fill out the rest of this season. There are a few people who I've written to who have not gotten back with me. So if you are somebody who has applied to be on this show, you might want to check your spam folder and be sure that you're not missing out on an opportunity, because there are a few people that I'm getting ready to go to the next person on the list because I haven't received any replies after 2 or 3 attempts to contact them. So check your spam folder, people. You might be missing out on being part of our podcast. I am working diligently on the year-end book buying guide for season 4 that will come out for the holiday shopping season. And I'm looking at possibly putting in QR codes on each author's page so that you can just go straight to their podcast episode and listen. We'll just see how things go. I will let you know for certain how we're going to be doing everything as more things get accomplished, and I can tell you for certain what's coming up. I am hoping to have a final first draft done of my own book that I'm working on, Free Bad Haircut with Each Craniotomy, my medical memoir. And maybe in the future, I will be doing an episode where I have another author interview me about my book, because I want to sell my own books too. It's a weird thing that we authors like to do. And I think that's enough for today. We've got storms coming through the area. So let's go ahead and just close out this episode, and we'll catch up on anything that I forgot next week. So now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be happy.